focus. Pete Ciccone, owner of 619 Muscle. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good. You're making it through. You had your extra bit of lifesaver.
Oh yeah, we're good to go.
You're good to go.
Thank you.
We'll get into Midnight Bob later on in the show. Okay. Coach, for me, World's Gym down in PB. It kind of seems like a mythical thing at some point in your life. And then 6 months ago, Oscar goes, let's go down there, start working out down there. So, great people down there. And, thank you for, I think that the perception is everybody's just huge and going to be mean and not talk to you and that kind of stuff. But talk about the people that actually work out there.
World Gym San Diego is kind of an anomaly in a good way. When I first moved out here to San Diego about 14 years ago, we went there because, we heard it was Gold Gym at the time. And, of course, Gold Gym, everybody knew, had the reputation of being the hardcore place. And me being in bodybuilding for the past almost 30 years, I said, well, let me go to the hardcore place in San Diego. And then, on our first tour, my brother and I went up to LA to the Mecca eventually. But we ended up loving San Diego, and we love World Gym, which was Gold Gym at the time. And then the same owners changed it over to World Gym for franchising and, interests. And it's an amazing place. It's a place that's full now of competitors. We have our business there, 619 Muscle the Store, and our training services. My wife and I, my wife's an IFBB Pro figure athlete, as I talked about earlier as well. And, she's one of the driving forces in my life in terms of inspiration, and I think in the gym as well. She's just amazing in the sense of her dedication to the sport, dedication to the lifestyle, but her really, just kind of laid back attitude. She takes all of the challenges of what we do in a very stoic manner, in a very laid back, matter of fact approach, which is inspiring to me because I struggle with food. I have my whole life. I've got some eating issues, and we talked about Midnight Bob in the break. We talk about me, and Midnight Bob's the guy in my house who eats all the cookies when nobody's looking around midnight.
And Coach, you're Oscar's coach, and you have been for a while, so that's how I was introduced to you. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, for people that don't understand, that last 36 hours that leads up to a competition, what goes into it, the science behind it. Really, a year ago was the first time I ever stepped on stage, and I was kind of by myself the last 36 hours. So, when I'm supposed to be getting tighter and a little bit bigger, I was, shrinking down into something that people looked like I thought I was sick or something.
Well, bodybuilding itself is crazy. When you see the guys in the magazines and you see, these guys are all oiled up and they're shiny and their skin looks tight and their muscles are full and veiny and lean. It's one thing to be lean, to have a little bit of body fat. But when you manipulate your carbohydrates, if you think about this, your muscles are like big sugar water balloons. They have carbohydrates and they have water. And sugar and water pull each other together and they fill inside the muscle. So if you can pull all the water, or majority of the water from your skin into your muscles for a short period of time, your body will hold that there. That causes the muscle to actually physically swell, to get big, to get full, to be pumped. At the same time, when you diet down the fat, the subcutaneous fat goes away. You end up with very thin skin. Now, bodybuilders and physique athletes, by manipulating water, carbohydrates, sodium, potassium, the last few the week before the prep, that really what they call peak week now. It's kind of a layman's term, or been out there in social media. Peak week is just really the final week of prep. You take care of your water depleting, you cut back a little bit, the skin gets a little bit thinner, a little drier, but rather than being too dry, you put the water where you want it, because remember, water follows carbohydrates, and the carbohydrates, your body always goes through this adaptive process, whether it be just fat loss in general, or whether it be manipulating carbohydrates for the carbohydrate load and that full crazy look that you see on stage. That's not something we walk around with, bodybuilders or physique athletes. We don't walk around shredded, full, ripped year round, even though that's what you see in the magazines and on Instagram. Typically you'll have a peak, and that you try to control that peak and time it and manipulate it by having the water follow the carbs, and the body goes through a hypercompensation for a short period of time. And that's a little bit of the strategy, a little bit of the art, a little bit of the science of bodybuilding and peaking. And that's something we've become pretty comfortable at 619 Muscle. And as you can see, you witnessed Oscar at the California State Championships last weekend kicking some serious butt.
I was thankful that you just let me stand next to you guys, and kind of the ability to walk into a bathroom, Oscar take his shirt off, you look at him and tell him what he can put in next and what he should put in next. Kind of talk us through that, what he looks like versus what that he can put in his body next.
Well, and the thing is, when you see an athlete, like as we do when we're training our athletes for competition, you're assessing the body on a weekly basis, and as you get down to the final weeks before the show, you start pulling out food, pulling out carbohydrates, so you see the body go through changes, and you know how much volume the muscles can hold because you know what they are in the history. As the body starts getting leaner, then it becomes more and more obvious. You can see the changes in the body, subtle changes, then become very obvious, especially to the trained eye. And when we put in a little bit of carbohydrates, different levels of glycemic load carbohydrates, you've got different speed of absorption from the digestive system into the bloodstream and then into the muscles. You'll see the body respond by pulling water into the muscles for a short period of time or slowly, depending on the type of carbohydrate you're using. And when you take a carbohydrate depleted body, it becomes hungry for carbs. Not just physically hungry, but actually at the cellular level. The cells really want to soak up those carbs into the muscles. And because carbohydrates are hydrophilic, they're like a magnet to water. You know, if you put your finger just over the surface of water, the water will jump up to the finger. It's this real neat little surface tension thing. Very similarly at the cellular level, carbohydrates pull water into the muscle because carbs go into the muscle, and that's where you get that vacuum effect, and that ends up pulling water osmotically through the cell membrane into the muscle, so you get a fuller muscle that's rounder, and the skin then gets thinner, and you get this nice, round, tight, full look, as you witnessed through Oscar's transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. He looked ridiculous, and that's why I'm saying it's a science. Like just listening to you, going, how how does the normal person even wrap their head around this? But I guess at a competitive level, it's not for the everyday person. But let's transition into the average person and kind of some misconceptions that they go into in terms of weight training, supplementation, nutrition. We'll go through each of them. With regard to weight training, what are some misconceptions out there that you see kind of day in and day out? Maybe not in your gym, but on Instagram.
Well, and I think everywhere. And I think the thing is, and Luke, you can back me on this as well. But people think that it happens overnight. And when we're talking about resistance training, the resistance training is a tool to build muscle mass and to preserve muscle. And we're talking about getting lean, whether it be at the general fitness level or whether it be at the elite level of a competitive athlete. We're talking about changing body composition. What is body composition? It's the measurement or the combination of body fat percentage-wise compared to the rest of the body, lean tissue, bone, muscle. And then what you want to do when you're trying to get leaner is lose fat, but at the same time not lose muscle. And the misconception is losing weight equates to losing fat. And this is something that's critical for health, but also for success. If you lose weight by simply restricting calories blindly, but not eating, what happens is the body is just as likely to use muscle for fuel as it is the fat. Desirable muscle. People may say, well, I don't really care if I'm muscly. I just want to be thin. Yeah, that's true to a point. However, realize that muscle is like the engine in your car. The bigger the engine, the more gasoline you use. So your metabolism, which is governed by the size of your engine, means you can eat more. We're talking about programming metabolism. If you have more muscle, you can eat more. Or, not that you necessarily want to eat more, but you have the choice, or if you're not eating more, at least you can carry around less body fat, percentage-wise.
And then, now that we're training and eating properly, I understand, what is really earned when you really deserve a double-double. I see a lot of people on Facebook and Instagram, like they just earned a double-double because they did 20 minutes of cardio. And Oscar talks about it all the time, that you can't choose what your body's going to burn off. In terms of real long-term effects, I understand that you have to have that double-double every once in a while for some balance, but when are they really earned?
Well, I think the thing is, and it's when you talk about supercompensation and you talk about conditioning your metabolism, and I know, look, in your seminar, I'm sure you get into that as well, but conditioning your metabolism, realize this. First and foremost, the body is the most incredibly adaptive machine there is. In other words, it adapts, it adjusts to any stimulus you put on it. If you lift heavier things, your body will get stronger. But in order to get stronger, it will build more lean tissue. If you take calories away from the system, the body will use stored energy. If you take calories in the form of food away from the body's going to use either muscle or fat for energy because you're not giving it enough. You don't want to lose muscle, so you lift heavy things to stimulate muscle retention, and then you pull away calories in the form of carbohydrates or fats, and your body will choose fat if it needs to preserve muscle. So we're talking about adaptation. That's what we're trying to enhance the body's ability to retain muscle at the same time metabolize away the fat. And in doing that, when you're looking at rewards system, if you've suppressed the body sufficiently for a long period of time, what happens is the body adapts. The body says, wow, we're not getting as much food as we used to. We can't run around with this V8 engine. We're not putting enough fuel into the car. We have to down-regulate the size of the engine. So then the body becomes from a V8, it goes down to a Corolla, 4-cylinder engine. Metabolism slows. In order to prevent that, periodically, intermittently, very carefully, not randomly, not, oh, just because it's a refeed day.
That's normally my take. Oscar's trained me not to.
I feel tired. I feel hungry. Let me have some of that peanut butter on my cover. No, what you do is you time it based on the guidance of an experienced coach who can recharge your metabolism, preventing adaptation.
No, it makes sense. Let's transition a little into weight training and how some misconceptions there. We see a lot of people in the gym, and you want to walk up to them and say you're not doing that properly, but you don't want the ramifications of saying that to somebody. So you leave them alone. But what are some things that you see as on a recurring basis that people need to be staying away from?
Oh, stiff-legged deadlifts?
Because they don't know how to do them?
Well, yeah, I think, geez, there's so many different specific things in terms of resistance training. I think the biggest things, people expect that muscles are going to pop out overnight, and realize that, 3 to 5 pounds of lean tissue gain over the course of a year is pretty darn good. It's a lot. Yeah. If you think about this, 3 pounds of raw meat, 3 pounds of steak laid out in front of me, that's a ton of beef, right? That's essentially equivalent size-wise and parameter-wise of lean tissue. Now, if I took that and I cut it up into eighths and I put like a little bit here.
I was just going to say, if I can put it where I want it to go.
but seriously, that's a ton of size. 3 pounds on a lean body of lean tissue is a ton. So when people come to me, one of the first things we do when we talk about weight resistance training is like, oh, I want to put on 20 pounds and compete on stage in the next 6 months and, 20 pounds bigger. I say, well,
yeah, you giggle at people. Good, that's good.
And I tell you, when you do the math, you think about it this way. I started weight training. I was 130 pounds when I got out of the Army. When I was, Jesus, it was a while ago, about 25 years ago. 25 years ago, I was 135 pounds. And now, in a similar amount of body fat, I'm probably about 215. So that's
with a similar body fat. 135.
Yeah, but that's a boatload of weight, right? You think about that. What's about 80 pounds? But that's 25 years. So if you think about how much weight I've gained over the course of every year for the past 25 years, considering I've been eating a high amount of protein, higher than most people would recommend, and that's another misconception in terms of the importance of protein, and that's something that I base a lot of my. Thank you. Yeah. No, seriously. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, he's on our side when it comes to how much protein we should eat. Yeah. But anyway, that's something we'll get into in a second. But the misperception in terms of weight training is that you can build size quickly. But you figure I've gained about 3 pounds a year, on average, over the past 25 years.
And look at how you said it's just that people, again, don't give themselves enough time. They don't commit to the long term. They want the quick and easy.
Yeah, it's patience, man, and it's a lot of work, but enjoy the journey. Because it's fun.